Now from here, Anand continued bringing his rook to e3. And now Lautier really brought his knight into the action. He really wants to bring his knight to d5 and put a lot of pressure on this rook here. But from here, White's going to go ahead and retreat his bishop. Obviously, top players don't want to exchange their bishops for knights. And Black is now going to bring his knight to d5. Now from here, White has a nice little move. And if you want to go ahead and pause it and look at it, and this is probably the defining moment in the game. Later on, you'll see a very important move, but this next move is very important for White. And it's pawn to f3. And basically what this says is, I'm not planning on retreating. I'm gonna plan on attacking the rest of the game. And he basically saw that if he wanted, if Black were to come in and take this rook, then he could take with his bishop, and this black bishop right here on g2 is trapped. So he was basically willing to trade this rook and his pawn for these two minor pieces. And Anand saw that as a win-win. So with that said, Black didn't go for that right away. Instead, he brought his bishop down to b4, trying to get more pieces into the action since this bishop was just sitting back. White decided to go ahead and bring his king to f2, again trying to attack this light squared bishop. There's nowhere for this bishop to go now. He is trapped in here. And Black's going to go ahead and start to give himself a little room and start to trade off pieces. And no longer is he worried about giving up his bishop, because he is trading his bishop for a knight. And Black's going to go ahead and take, and the queen's going to start to gobble up pawns here. And that's completely okay with White, because White's going to bring his rook to b1 and start to attack the king side over here. Well, the queen side, but he's going to start to attack the black king. Black's going to continue to gobble up pawns here. And the rook's going to come to b7. And this is very important. Anytime you're playing a game, a rook on the 7th rank is very important. It can just gobble up pawns or pieces depending on what's on the 7th rank. But a rook on the 7th rank is very, very strong. So this is why White allowed Black to gobble up these two pawns in exchange for this one pawn on b7 and 7th rank control. And the next move here is really what makes this game so memorable. And it's White's move, and go ahead and take a minute. And if you don't find it, it's okay, because the next move after this move that we're going to talk about right here is just as memorable. So take a minute if you want to pause it and see if you can find what White's plan is here. And White actually moved h6, which got 2 exclamation points if you're looking at the game board. But this is an amazing move, because he's basically giving up this pawn here, and even if he doesn't give up this pawn, if he tries to avoid it and come to g6, White's going to have the exact same plan, because after Black takes on h6, then go ahead and look at White's move if you want to pause it real quick. But White played bishop to g6, and this is a huge move, because what it does, it's a discovered attack on the queen, so Black has to do something as far as, because this queen's in danger. So he can either take this queen, or, because if he doesn't, this queen's going to be captured. Or his other move is to take this bishop and just lose his queen. Or we'll see he has a third option. But if he does take this queen and get greedy, then White can easily win the game here. Well, I say easily. You could have won the game, but you probably want to play g6 if you didn't see this next combination. But if Black does take on d1, then you could come to e6 with your rook. Again, this pawn right here is pinned down because of our bishop. And from here, the black king would have to come to f8. Doesn't have any other legal moves. And our bishop can come into the action. Again, this is our first time that we brought our dark square bishop into the game. To h6 here, check. And after the black king comes to g8, his only legal move, then we can bring our bishop to f7, and this is checkmate. So if the queen does get greedy and comes down to d1 and captures our queen, then he's going to lose the game. As we already talked about, if he does take our bishop here, then we can take his queen. So that's not very good. But there is one other move, and that's what Lautier saw, and that was bringing his knight to e7, knowing that now he's attacking this bishop, but at the same time, if we were to take this queen, then his rook is here and he can take this as well. But White saw this and he said, you know what, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. He's going to go ahead and take this, and after he trades, White already saw that his position is completely fine, and he can at any time he can take this bishop and be up in material. So from here, White decided to go ahead and start trading down. He brought his rook here to d3. Anytime you're up in material, you want to trade down, because as pieces start to come off the board, your advantage will become more and more clear. So White saw this and decided that he wants to go ahead and start trading off pieces. Now Black decided that his king would be best on d8, so he tried to save himself a move, because if instead he took, then the bishop would come down to d3. Black, again, remember, wanted to bring his king to d8. It was kind of a moot point, but instead he brought his rook to d8, and after White captured on d8, then and the Black king captured on d8, excuse me, and then the bishop came down to d3. Now it's Black's move, but he is up another move if he wanted his king on d8. Now after the bishop came down to d3, Black resigned, and if you look at it here, this bishop on d3 is now safe, and at the same time, if White wants to, he can take this bishop on g2 anytime he wants. As you can tell, White will now have two minor pieces. He'll have a rook on the 7th rank, and this rook here on h8 has done completely nothing, and it's still out of the game. It can get into the game if it wants to, but right now it's not doing anything, and White's going to have a pretty easy game here at the GM level. Keep in mind, anytime you have this sort of advantage at the GM level, it's normally a pretty easy win. If you're lower than the GM level, which I would assume most people are, it can be a little trickier, but at the same time you do have two light square bishops. The game is open, there's not a lot of pawns in the middle, and it's going to be very easy for you to control the rest of the game. This knight here on e7 right now is not going to do too much. Your king is already starting to be centralized. You can start to bring it up the board with e3, e4, and it's going to be really hard for Black to stop all the momentum that you have here. So in this case, Lautier decided that the game was lost, and he went ahead and resigned. So this is the first video. It's a two-part series, two-video series, because it was a little longer than 10 minutes. I'll try to go a little bit in depth on each of the moves that the GMs made here. I'm going to be going through again each of the games on my website. And I'll try to make them as frequently as possible. But I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary on this famous game. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.